Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bunaktu, Sahaviryang Karavavahai, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Have you ever waited for the perfect thing to come and it never came? Yes. So this is the lotus flower. A lotus flower is unique and it shines amidst the muddiness of imperfection. It doesn't wait for the pond to settle. It knows its purpose and it does so without apologies. It's unapologetically shining. If some other nearby flower is jealous, well, the flower has some work to do, but the lotus flower continues shining. So like this, we're taught to be like this lotus flower, where you need to know about your skills and who you are, what you're about, what place you have in this world, and unapologetically shine that, because someone's always going to have, like with the lotus flower, a problem. They might be jealous, they might not like you, they might sort of put you down, but you just keep doing what you do 24/7, nonstop, like that. And chapter 5 gives us 2 ways to shine, to be enthusiastic while resting in the pond, the world. In verse 11, it talked about the nearest instrument, the one with which you have most control, which is your body, mind, and senses. There's nothing more you have control end of the day than your own perception, how you see things. In the Mundaka Upanishad, there's an analogy to demonstrate this. And it's an analogy of a bow, an arrow, and a target. Now, the target obviously is something that matters to you. Now, that will change, of course, what stage of life you're in. But in Advaita Vedanta, that is the reality, knowing which at once everything else becomes known. That's the target. And the bow is the Om. Now, Om here symbolizes the teaching, the pramana. You need a vehicle to send you from where you are to where you want to be. So the bow will, the string will escalate you there. And the arrow is what do you think the arrow is for? It stands for? Because the arrow is going to hit the target, right? What is reaching the target? Your mind, okay? Therefore, that arrow might miss sometimes because you don't have practice. And so it starts to hit for maybe spiritual experiences. And that's okay. That teaches you a lot about them, teaches you, what doesn't work and what works. So eventually you get closer and closer. And sometimes you hit the target and the next try you miss and you go, I really thought I got it, but it went away. I need one more hit of this wisdom. And like this, you keep on trying and trying. But eventually you look to your left or your right, because you're not the only one that's striking that arrow. Somebody else is getting it every single time. And you're like, yeah, what's their secret? Walk over there and, hey, buddy. So what are you all about? And they tell you they're just like you. They too have a targeting mind. They just persisted a little bit longer. That's the only difference. They don't have any special skills, except they went through the whole journey and they got there eventually. And so your target thus needs to be visible. And the moment we lose our target in life, it can be domestic targets, it can be worldly targets, it can be spiritual targets. The moment you lose your target in your mind, that's the instant moment where your energy starts to slump and your enthusiasm starts to go down. So the proportion of your enthusiasm in life is a direct proportion to how in touch you are with your goals. And this is a very important and universal teaching that if you want to just simplify this whole thing about staying upright and uplifted throughout the times, just remember this. Do and are you in touch with what excites you, what uplifts today, what matters to you, and is also, in line with the higher teachings. When you get very clear with your goal, the proportion to how clear you are and how specific you are to that goal is a proportion to how enthusiastic you remain in life in general. And this is a very, very, important lesson that bears repeating again and again to yourself. Why? Because the mind likes to consume. It's like a mouth. It likes to eat things. It's a consumer. And whatever you offer it, it consumes that. So every day you're given experiences, and not all of them are keeping with your goals. And the mind wants to chew on experiences. So unless you deliberately intercept and offer your mind a direction to which it can consume, it will start to consume things that are tasty, but they don't have any nutritional value for the mind. Therefore, the question is, are you in touch with the food for your mind on a daily basis from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep? And when you get lost with that, what is your means to get back to that goal, to keep you going through life relatively enthusiastically? We don't have to be clowns enthusiastic, but relatively cheerful and decently, strong, carrying yourself upright. So this is verse 11, the mastery of your most precious instrument, the body-mind, which you are carrying in this moment, which is endowed with many abilities and from which you can draw from. It's only a matter of discovery and aligning to that instrument that's given to you. And this is one of the most precious things that you can do in your life. Just getting the instrument aligned and fine-tuned and operating in a manner that works for it and keeps it upright and relatively composed together. An instrument that is together. The mind is together, working with the senses are together, working with your goals. The goals are together, working with the scriptures. So when you align your goals to the scriptures, then you can, relax, because now it's not just your goal, it's actually a universal goal that ultimately everyone is seeking. And how do you know everyone's seeking moksha? Because moksha means freedom. And in every attempt since a child, you were doing nothing but attempting to get freedom. Whether you were pursuing wealth or security or family or relationships, why was that being pursued? It was pursued for my security. What you were really looking for is freedom from insecurity. Otherwise, you would have not sought that. If you were pursuing pleasures or entertainment or general satisfaction, which we call kama, then again, why were you pursuing that? Because general satisfaction, as momentary as it is, removes your sense of emptiness. So again, I was looking for freedom from emptiness, from a sense of purposelessness. So once again, you're looking for freedom. If you're looking for dharma, or generally an ethical and well-integrous life, a person, an upright standing person, you want freedom from a disintegrated person. So therefore you go and pursue dharma. So even dharma was nothing but a pursuit for freedom. So whether it was security was for the sake of moksha, karma was for the sake of moksha, dharma was for the sake of moksha. So how many goals are there actually? There's not 4 goals, there's only one, and that is moksha. And people pursue moksha in their ways, but there is the ultimate way to pursue moksha, and that is by changing your entire understanding of who you are to be the one that is completely and utterly at rest and at peace and at ease, despite the constant demands and the complaints that your body keeps on, naturally responding to in the world. And so when you change that identity, we call that the ultimate final freedom, after which there's nothing more to attain, because your identity happens to be the whole, the entire universe, in which the universe rests, but also much larger than the universe. So again, going back to the question, it was, how do you remain relatively cheerful despite the muddiness in the world? The first one was mastery of the body and the mind, your instrument.
I had a question on 5.10. Krishna says papin, so he talks about how the papa will not actually you'll not get affected by sin. But I assume that means both papa and punya, right? Like that's something I wanted to ask. Why did he say papa?
You don't get affected by papam nor punyam, so it has to be both. The reason is because if you, by the way, we will reassure you this with verse 14, who's the actual doer. But for now, if you ask yourself, generally, what is it that is in the world responding and desiring and, talking to people? And then you say, well, it is my mouth, it is my brain, it is my arms, it is my brain cells, it is my arms, it is my desires, which I've learned at some point in my life. It is all these things put together, which are doing in this world. And see, you didn't get born in this world saying, I'm going to desire this kind of a person in my life, or I'm going to desire these kinds of people, and I'm going to like these kinds of things, and I'm going to hate these kinds of things. You didn't choose that. If you did, then you'd be having, a great time. You would have probably made a few changes to your body, to, the people that you're born in and the family and so on. So you would have made a lot of changes if you were truly the one who did the selection. But since you found yourself in this meat tube, you can call it your door, yeah, body mind, then you find yourself with a certain inclination towards things which are to you make sense, but to somebody else, they're totally turned off by that. And then you say, well, then, if I didn't choose that, then who is the chooser, right? And then you say, well, it's Ishwara's laws, that ultimately, through Ishwara's laws, there is a person called Shweta, which came with a certain inclination, we call it samskaras, which make you prefer one thing and make you not prefer something else. And that person is now, in the light of those samskaras, choosing in the world. Like a program, like a total software made to respond and choose. And so when Krishna says, it is not you that is choosing, that is making one preference over another, it is a program given to you since a long time, like a software, just a little programmer uploaded the software in your mind, and now that instrument called your name is simply playing out that software in this world completely, automatically, and you can't help it. And so the era is now when you think that, when you understand yourself to be that very person who's programmed to respond to the world. And that person does a lot of punyam and a lot of papam in this world. Sometimes they make mistakes intentionally. Sometimes they, under pressure, they, make a mistake. Sometimes it is accidental. So either way, what Krishna is bringing is, let that person, educate that person, which is what we're doing now, which is important, right? To restructure the way that we do things in the world, but also understand that you have no real connection to that person. Your real true nature is free of the doer. So the doer, the karta, just means basically the body-mind mechanism, okay? And so that relieves a lot of pressure from you, that you don't have to now go around feeling guilty. Oh God, please forgive me for the mistakes that I made. Because again, if you really were in total control of your life, you would have came or been born with total ability to make the right decisions and never make mistakes and be this brilliant, shining person that we all, kind of want to be. But it's not going to happen because you do come with both punyam and papam. Some of your abilities are causing hurt for others. Some of your stuff is causing, brightness for others. So every one of us is like that. We have punyam and papam. And since we didn't choose to create these circumstances that force us to hurt other people, sometimes accidentally or sometimes intentionally under our own pressures, since we didn't choose that, then you cannot now thus attribute that response or that result to be mine, because I didn't choose it. If I chose it, then I would have been totally responsible. But where's the proof that I didn't choose it? Where's the proof that you did not choose your life? Because again, if you chose every person that comes into your life, the kids that you have, what people you're going to get along with, which people you're not going to be very good with. If you truly were the chooser of life, would have your life not been different by now? Very different? Decently different? Yes, every single person is going to say yes, but it's not, if you're honest. And because it's not, it must thus mean that I was not the chooser in the first place. It means thus I was born with a certain pressure to pull myself in this world. And through that pressure, I made mistakes and I made some people smile. And so Krishna thus says, let that be true, because that is true. We all know it, but also understand that you are much bigger and you're not connected to this person. This person is incidental for a short amount of time, 80 years, but your nature is vast and happens to be free of all the punyam and papam, all the sins and virtues that this person has done. And so when you listen to this, you say, it's on one hand, it's empowering. It's like, I don't have to feel so guilty for my past sins and transgressions. But at the same time, it makes me now want to be responsible, because it doesn't offload me from duty. It actually makes me carry on my duty in the light of the knowledge, but also do it with a cheerfulness, because I know that ultimately I'm not really, the chooser of the results that come to me and all these pressures that keep pouring out of me. Does that make sense? Okay. So verse 12. So again, the question was, how do you move in this world relatively cheerfully while there's, mud around you? So verse 11 was the mastery of your body-mind instrument, which is where your locus of control is. Now, verse 12 is changing your relationship with the results. And the only possible way to, without faking, to have a genuine response of equanimity towards the result without faking it, like, oh, no, nothing touches me, I am Brahman, I am eternal, without faking it. The only possible way to have genuine equanimity towards results is by understanding that the results are within a certain order. The order that, once again, you did not take part in creating. You're like a computer character, a character in a game. And the game's rules were designed by the game creator, right? And when the character makes a mistake, then there is a certain effect to that. Now, that effect is because the creator designed it. And so all the character can do is just participate in this game, which is governed by the laws made by the creator, which the character cannot cheat or transgress. Should they do, there is a consequence. And the reason why there is a consequence is that it has to be a system to protect all characters in the game. And so when you understand that you're like a character which cannot bypass or cheat these laws, which are for the greater good of all beings, then you see that ultimately it's not really that personal in this world at all. It's a cause-effect connection between what you do and what is received. And you also come to see that ultimately you don't have all of the control in terms of what comes to you, because there are a lot of conditions that intervene by the time you act and by the time you receive something. There are people that have changed the final outcome. There are decision makers that have changed the final outcome. There are unfortunate traffic jams that have changed the final outcome. There are some foods you eat, you want to be healthy, and then you eat a poisonous food or something, and then you say, well, this is not what I expected. So there are so many things in between that you will keep on getting in your life. And what happens is then we take it personally. We say, I didn't get what I wanted, what sincerely meant something for me. Therefore, I am unsuccessful, right? Or I am a failure. That's a mistake. It's not to be looked at as you being a failure, rather as the way that the system is designed, it's very complex. If you were the only person in the world, then maybe, yes, you'll be getting things a lot more often, but you're not. And because the order has to accommodate and sustain the needs of every individual and provide them with what is good and healthy for each individual, the order cannot just exclusively focus on you and make your life 24/7 perfect. It doesn't work like that. So when you come to see that it's not a sort of this selective thing, it's like a personal vendetta against you, then you come to just relax and say, okay, great. Well, not great, but this didn't happen. Now what? What's next? In the light of this result, what feedback have I gotten that will now let me do the next move that makes sense? And so verse 12 will talk about this. Yukta karma palam tyaktva shantim apnoti naishtikim ayukta kama karena pale sakto nibhadyate.
The one who is endowed with karma yoga, giving up the result of action, gains a composure born of a commitment to a life of karma yoga, whereas the one who is not committed to a life of karma yoga led by desire is bound, being attached to the result of action.
So karma yoga, this is the topic. And karma yoga is two things. It is how you act. In what manner am I to act in this world? The manner that will bring success and prosperity in my life, generally. And two, how am I to respond when the results come to my life? How am I to act and how am I to receive? These are the essential components of karma yoga. How am I to perform on a daily basis? What is to be done and in what manner? Not necessarily what is to be done, in what manner is it to be done? That's the question. And two, by what attitude am I to receive what the world is presenting to me? That's karma yoga. And two aspects. Every day, the first one is, in what manner am I to act? And if you want one-line summary, it is to have a purpose behind your action, a purpose that is of a higher cause. In one summary, that's why we already talked about that bullseye. What is my goal? Now, every day, you're confronted with situations, and therefore, you're expected to respond. It's not possible to not respond. Now, the default way of responding to situations is how? Without any training. It is entirely through your ups and downs, right? Likes and dislikes. And what happens is, if it's comfortable, I will take it. If it's not comfortable, I will reject it. This is the basic way of everyone responding at the beginning. And Arjuna had the same issue. So at the battlefield, he was seeing his cousins and, half family. And for that reason, he had a certain form of like towards them, like grandfather and grandsire. So he said, I'm not going to fight because I have a personal investment of not killing those people that matter to me. But at the same time, he was also in that same battlefield and he wanted to fight because he had a vendetta, he had a dislike for what the Kauravas have done to him. They have mistreated his wife, Draupadi. They have insulted him. and his brothers, and generally mistreated him unfairly. And so he had an anger, and from that anger, that dislike, he was willing to fight. And then when it's time to fight, he says, no, I don't want to fight. Why? Because I have a dislike for fighting towards my family, right, and cousins. So like, dislike. And you see what kind of a drama it created. Likely created chapter 1 to 18. So that's, in Arjuna's case, we thank him for that. But in our case, we don't create books. For others, we create drama. Now, what Krishna says is, rather than looking at it as I'm going to do based on what I like and dislike, rather ask, what is expected of me in the situation? What is the larger good in the situation that, of course, protects you? You always think about yourself first. That's natural, but also accounts a bigger picture that requires your services, which by your involvement would become better in some way. And so you say, so my life isn't really to express a whole bunch of likes and dislikes, which are of personal nature, which will never end, but rather to shift from asking, what do I want personally, into what is the situation calling here, which by my involvement, the situation will become slightly healthier. Now, this kind of alignment with Dharma is what gives you joy. When your likes and dislikes are aligned with what is decent, what is healthy for all beings, or for the larger being of the environment, that is when you generally have joy playing out your likes and dislikes. Because now there's no guilt whatsoever. You know that whatever you do is actually helping more people than just one single person. And that gives you a certain sense of strength, self-confidence, reassurance that you are capable, and makes you an upright standing woman or man. And so you come to see that the goal is not to keep on expressing my endless desires, but to use that push of desire to evolve. And the only way you can evolve is by making your desire accommodate a larger whole than just yourself. This is karma yoga as to in what manner am I to express my actions, in a manner that doesn't just account my little likes and dislikes, but accounts the larger good of the environment and people around me. Now, we're not talking about what to do. We're talking about whatever you do, what is the attitude by which it is done? What is the intention behind that action? What is the push that makes you act? And the push is, let me create some level of healthiness in my environment. That's the first one, aspect one of karma yoga, changing the purpose behind your action. And then aspect two, it doesn't stop there, because when you do act from a place of including the well-being of the environment, yourself, and you do it to the best of your ability, karma yoga asks you then, can you be okay with the kind of results that you have gotten? Now, most people will say, well, it depends. Well, karma yoga says, actually, you don't have any say over what results come to you. Because like we said, there are things that are outside your control, which your effort was one of those factors, but is it the only factor that is going to contribute to what comes to you in your life? No. By now, we all know there are people and situations and economy and moods are going to change. And that can at once shift the entire equation, and then you like taken back. But you have to understand it is possible. So now the question is, can you be okay with that for now on, that whatever happens to you, it's not entirely under your control. It is governed by laws which do not discriminate. They just have to operate 24/7 to keep everything and everyone in a generally healthy state. Okay. Now, when you come to see this, something happens. You see that there is no Ishwara's will. This is how we say sometimes. It is Ishwara's, it is God's will. This is provisional language we need to understand. If God had a will, that would mean that God has personal desires. Okay? So you need to change this language from it's God's will to it's coming from God's impartial laws. It's coming from Ishwara's laws, which do not discriminate. They just act neutrally towards all beings. For instance, suppose you have a hand that places itself near a fire, and the fire is going to, on a cold day, warm your hand. And so you're going to take certain comfort in that. But then you take that same hand, by your will, you put that hand closer to the fire. What happens? Can you now say that the fire, which is nothing but Ishwara had a will to hurt you? Can you say that? Whose will caused you to be hurt? It was your will. By your choice alone, you misdirected your hand, disrespected the laws, misused the laws, and by that alone, you caused yourself to be hurt. The fire has no choice. It cannot stop its hotness and say, whoa, this person is crazy. I'm going to reduce my warmth. It has to remain the same. Everything in nature remains the same. It doesn't waver to save you. And so by me understanding that the laws are like this, then do you really have any choice but to work with the laws as opposed to against them? Considering that everything that comes to you is really a result of your will and your qualitativeness of your decisions rather than some external force that's giving you a hard time. Ellie?
So what do you say when a child is diagnosed with cancer and ends up dying? Because I would say that's God's will, but you're saying it's not God's will. It's the natural order of things.
It's a natural order of things. It is. In terms of we see the cancerous cells and we see the disease. We don't see the history, the story of what has led to that. Because we need to understand there is a cause-effect relationship. Nothing just appears randomly. There's always a reason or a connection between what I see and what I don't see. And so what the doctors see and what the parents can see is a death of a child and the whole mourning process that comes with that. But when you take away this cause-effect relationship, then the person becomes angry towards God unnecessarily, because then they say it's God's will. Why would God, and this is so often and so common, why would God kill my child, right? And it's the most emotional and distressing thing ever. And so what we say in Vedanta, this is a wrong understanding of Ishvara. And so you can see how one small deviation from what God means, it changes the whole thing. Now I no longer trust Ishvara. Why should I pray to him? And then Vedanta talks about Ishvara, and you're like connecting Ishvara now to that one who's using his will to kill my child. So I'm not listening to Vedanta. The whole thing falls apart. And so when we re-understand that Ishvara doesn't have a will of his own, see, Ishvara's will, it's soothing because you need to sort of attribute it to some higher cause. We always kind of take some soothingness by saying it's not entirely our fault. There's a much larger force out there. But even that alone can become a distortion. Because now you say, how could you, why would this happen? I was a good man, good woman, and you do this to me. Why? And so I'm angry. So this is simply arising out of a wrong understanding towards what Ishvara really means. Ishvara is like the fire. The fire has to work. The person with cancer, what we call their karma, their past causes, cause their body to be born with a certain condition, which another body has not. And while I cannot explain it, if I look at the physical, according to Vedanta, logically, you cannot find one single effect without a cause. Whether I see that cause, that past cause or not, that doesn't matter. The point is, there's not one thing in the universe which comes out of nothing. It is always connected to something else, just like your body. Your body that you have now is connected to the genes of your parents, connected to the great-great-grandfather and grandmother. So there is a certain connection. Yeah.
Thank you. It's just hard. It's like, what do you say to someone instead of, well, it's from God's, just say, well, they made causes, whether past life, this life,
Yeah.
that
And
resulted in this.
That's a good point too. And you can also see why this whole past life can actually be a very helpful teaching device. Even if a person doesn't entirely believe it or not, it's still very helpful because it provides you a certain explanation and relieves you from having to blame Ishvara. You simply understand this person too comes with their own causes, and this is what has happened. And because it's also my karma in some way, because my child died, it's not somebody else's. So it's also in some way connected to me also, which I don't understand how. But if you understand that there is a vast amount of conditions that have happened in the past, which are now fructifying in the present in the form of punyam and papam, in the form of pleasant and unpleasant experiences, then it gives you a lot of space to just relax and not be so angry and take it so personally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the
Great.
whole,
Thank
that's the
you. Thank you.
usefulness. Yes, Gagan?
I got a little confused by this. You were saying a little bit before that what comes back to us is a result of how we are applying our will. At the same time, a little while ago, we were talking about how we don't have a choice in what we're doing. So I'm a little getting confused there.
Sure. So it's not black or white, it's both. On one hand, you see, I can, drop this, and there is my will. My will is to drop this. Now, let's take something else, like a cup. If you are Indian and you drop this cup, and you're European and you drop this cup, is the cup going to fall differently?
No.
Does the law discriminate? This guy is, Indian, so let's make the cup fall in a divine way. This guy's European, let's make it fall in a more materialistic way or whatever, right? Or vice versa. No, so the laws don't care who you are. Only we as human beings, we discriminate and we create our own story. Oh, you're black, you're white, and so you deserve to suffer, and you're like this and that. But the laws don't care. So on one hand, I can apply my will, that's aspect number one, and make this cup fall. But now how this cup falls is not entirely under my control. Even though I can sort of position this cup and make it fall, according by learning the physics and make it fall in a certain way. But generally, I'm not going to have time to learn physics. I'm going to drop the cup and it's going to fall in a very not completely random way, but in a sort of a way that's not entirely in my choosing. So what it means is that on one hand, yes, you can apply an action into the field, but on the other hand, you cannot quite expect the absolute guarantee that you will get as you wanted. So that's how you reconcile. So therefore, you have to put together purushartha, which is free will, and prarabdha, which is the push of your past causes. How you do things is going to still be governed by how you've done it before, isn't it? So it's not entirely going to be a free will.
So it's not entirely driven by past prarabdha, but it is there's a large portion of it is that, and we also have a little bit of free will in that. Is that correct?
Exactly, exactly. So there is every action is pushed or governed by your past causes. That's called your destiny, prarabdha. But also that same action is also slightly influenced, or sometimes a lot influenced, by your purushartha, your free will. So it's always a interplay of both. Now, the more educated I get, the more alert, the more mindful I get, the stronger the free will becomes. The less sort of unconscious I just move through this world, I don't really think about my responses, I just act carelessly, the more I'm going to complain, oh, it's my destiny, things are meant to work out this way. And so you can see this shift. The more the person becomes responsible, the less they start to offload their causes as some destiny that's supposed to happen. So summary, it's an interplay of past and present.
Would it be correct to say that past plus present, like the prarabdha and what little free will we have by action, right? That determines the outcome, or even then the outcome is not deterministic?
I'm not sure I got that entirely.
So no. So our prarabdha plus our free will, does that determine what the result would be, or even then the result is actually not defined purely by?
Again, it's going to be a combination, because to what capacity do you exercise your free will? How much education you have in the moment of acting? Are you well educated? Are you well mindful? Are you including the consequences? And how many consequences, to what degree can I see the consequences in the future? To that degree, also my free will be influenced right now. How much is it in the morning or is it in the afternoon? Because did you know that your free will is weaker in the afternoon or in the evening than it is in the morning? Your will is like a muscle. It actually gets weaker in the evening. So if you want to convince someone to do something, you do it in the evening, not in the morning. In the morning, you're like, no, thanks.
Right. No. So I got that. What I was trying to clarify is that, for example, with our free will, the result that comes about, we cannot predict that, correct? Like, because that's not determined solely by that. It's determined solely by.
No. You can. It's not complete that you can't predict, because if you couldn't predict it, then why would you do anything in the first place? So the fact that I'm doing something must mean that this will lead to that. There's a connection. But exactly that's out of my control.
Right. So what I'm asking is, my free will plus the prarabdha, that determines the exact manner in which the result comes about, or is there something else as well?
Yes, so it's basically free will and your destiny. Prarabdha and purushartha determines the final outcome.
Okay.
In summary. Now, of course, with that, there's also variables that you don't control and so on, which I already explained. Okay, so now let me just put this in a little summary. See, I have to get practical. What does all this mean practically on an everyday basis? It just means that where is your control? Is it in the past pushes, the causes, or is it in my present actions right now? Where is the locus of my control?
Present.
So ultimately, I don't really have to philosophize about the past. All I have to do is just say, am I putting, what I can of my energy in this moment and keep my life simple?
I was wondering how God's grace, Ishvara's grace, plays into this then. If the laws are impersonal, how should we think about God's grace related to that?
Sure. So God's grace is more of an emotional language. See, Vedanta changes between intellectual language and emotional language. If you want a technical version of God's grace, it is like this. When I apply my action, as I'm speaking to Gagan now, and my action is aligned and consistent with what needs to be done to attain a certain result, and I do that on a consistent basis, and I don't waver, and I persist for some time, then eventually I will get more or less what I wanted. Okay. Now, when I get it, then a person walks over to me and they say, my God, you've been blessed by God's, you got so much God's grace. And you turn back to them, and what are you going to say? You're going to say, okay, you can call it that, but actually I've just worked my ass off, really, really hard. And so they're like, oh, okay. So, God's grace is one language, but a lot of effort aligned to Ishvara's laws is then by the result, you say, you've got God's grace. So that's why we say God's grace is earned. You earn it. You don't get it accidentally. So once again, it goes exactly to what Gagan was saying. It is always a mixture of past causes, my present actions, my persistence, my ability to handle the results that come my way. Do I get thrown off? Do I go depressed? Or do I just say, this has happened. What do I now do? This is feedback. What do I do now? What's next? All of these things collectively make you the person that you ultimately get called as blessed by God's grace. So it really is, end of the day, self-effort that gives you God's grace, because God's waiting for you. If you want to use, poetical language, he's saying, hey, I've given you a world, I've given you air to breathe, I've given you the Vedanta, I've given you all things. Now, please go and spend some time and invest yourself in it, because, the way that your brain works is it cannot accumulate or change in one day. It's impossible. So please sit down for 10 years at least. And you're like, no, thanks. And then you say, I don't have God's grace at all. But God's been telling you all this time, look at your life, look at anyone's life, anyone who's successful, they have spent so many hours in that art. And there is no other way. There's no shortcut to it. And by that, they have now earned God's grace. So now there's other ways that people use God's grace, but this is the Vedantic explanation. I added some concreteness to it, so it's not so vague. Because I know they say, in the Christian world, God's grace is just, blessed upon your head, as if He is, liking you, having some personal attraction towards you. That's not how it is, because that's just turning God into an anthropomorphic being. God is not a being separate. He is everything. He is the laws that are manifesting in this moment, and He's the very forms that you are seeing and witnessing in this moment too. And by them, the laws don't waver. They just have to sustain these forms, and I have been doing that for how long? Could you run this universe? Could you sustain that the earth is constantly revolving around the sun 24/7 without ever coming closer to the sun or farther away? Could you do that? No, now do that to billions of galaxies, billions of solar systems, 24/7, every single second, maintaining every single insect, the entire order being maintained perfectly for infinite amount of time. That is, what we now, when you tap into that order successfully, that's what you call, I've been blessed by His grace.
Okay, so you were saying Ishvara's will is an error, right? And it's immutable laws. Are laws not a result of will? Like, why these laws instead of other laws? Could he have chose other laws?
Okay, so the laws that I'm speaking of, maybe we need to create some category, is that, for example, the law of gravity doesn't waver for me. The law of heat, it doesn't waver. I don't really choose that by my will. I can, I use the law, and I can, by my intelligence, make use of it to a certain degree. So for gravity, I can, maybe exercise my legs if I want to do squats, but I can also send a satellite into the space by, knowing how much G-forces are required to take the rocket outside. So to the degree to how much I use my intelligence to work with the laws is a degree to how much the laws bless me. But the laws don't waver. They're waiting there for you. You get born amidst the laws. You get born a certain order, which says that if you hurt yourself, it's not going to feel natural. It says that if you hurt another person, it's not going to feel natural. Now, that you didn't write that. That was already inculcated in every single mind by the time it's born. That's why species can live together in harmony without decimating themselves, unlike human beings who then say, oh, look, we've got guns, we've got spears. Let's just, for our ends, without looking at the consequences for too long, let's use and kind of consume too much. And so we're able to transgress these laws, but are the laws so kind as they just leave us alone and they just let us keep doing this? No. The laws eventually send all that rubbish back, that's called the ocean, back onto the shore. And then you say, oh, I don't want to swim on this shore anymore because it's dirty. But if you look at yourself as the entire collective humanity, you have actually done that. You've contributed all that rubbish, and now the laws are sending it back into your face and going, here, my dear, what would you like to do with this? And then you learn slowly that if I transgress the laws give me a certain feedback system, which lets me know what I've done was not healthy. And this is how the feedback system works. Now, to the degree to how much I notice that is the degree to how successful I am working with these laws. So that's why we have to sometimes be vigilant and mindful, so we don't just completely, evade. You have to be very persistent, like what's happening in my life, and is it happening on a daily basis? And if it is, then what am I doing in my life that's making me this person in this manner, in this way, which is not entirely what I want? So, but summary, we don't create the laws. The laws are already there. Universal laws, psychological order, physiological order, electromagnetism, gravity, dharma, cause and effect. You don't create this. Yeah.
Right. So that's I understand that part. My question was more about the laws themselves, right? Like for them to be created, for the laws to be there before we got here, we can't change the laws, right? But something had to will those laws into being, right?
Yeah, so that which wills those laws into being is what we call this infallible, beginningless order, which always was there, sustaining every single universe, every single civilization, and even us now in this small fraction point of time, and that's what we call Ishvara, the Lord. Yeah.
Okay.
The way you said okay, is it really okay?
Well, I mean, I guess my question was like, could Ishvara have created other laws, or are these laws always been the same? Do they never change? Can they never change?
They will never change, because if they change, you could not trust the system. Then that means that one moment, if I want to exercise and get big muscles, then I will go to the gym and then I will get big muscles. Then tomorrow, the laws change. I exercise like crazy and then I go and I lose muscle mass. And then that means I could not trust the system anymore. So the reason why you have to, you're able to confidently work in this world and do what needs to be done is because there's a silent trust that what I'm doing now is going to bring me a corresponding result. If I lie and cheat, then I will, get a certain kind of fear in the future. If I lie and cheat one day and suddenly tomorrow I'm super happy and people say, hey, why are you so happy? Oh, because I lied and cheated yesterday, right? That's never going to happen unless you're on drugs or something, right? So the laws have to work consistently because that's the only way the person can grow.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Okay, thank God.
Okay.
Stand in comments.
Thank you.
So I do understand and appreciate the law of order, because whatever usually happens in life, be it good or bad, it's because of the prarabdha karma. Don't doubt that entire concept, because it kind of makes it logical. But from a very Indian standpoint, I don't know whether it works in other countries as well. There is this entire concept of going to an astrologer to check your doshas, right? So if something goes really wrong, they consult the astrologer, they give you a series of things to do to nullify the effect of the doshas. So if the law of order is so confined, if you have to go through the entire process of suffering, you might as well bear it. Or the whole understanding of astrology, how does it intertwine? Because you're trying to do certain kind of yagna, you kind of contact a tantra who does some sort of chanting for you, and they kind of make a affirmation that your entire doshas will be nullified or probably reduced to some extent. Where does it lie in the light of the entire law and order of Ishvara?
I would delegate this to Silma. By the way, I'm asking Silma because she is relatively good in Vedic astrology, and she's also very good in Vedanta. And I believe in this moment that she's more qualified to answer than I am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the best way to answer it, according to me, is yes, it's practiced even in Mauritius because we are very well influenced by Indian culture. And why do we do, like, it doesn't nullify, right? It brings us courage most of the time, even in Advaita. When we do those tantras, those mantras, it brings us courage, a lot of courage to be able to face those situations. But is it going to alter your prarabdha, or is it going to alter the situation? Not really likely, but it brings like a shock absorber that I have this mantra, I can do it, I can help myself through those tough times. Especially in Sadhisati, they tell you pray Lord Saturn, or in different, like K2, they'll give you the K2 mantra, but it's more towards helping you than actually changing the planet or changing the location in your house and etc.
Okay. And I'll also add that end of the day, see, no matter who tells you what's going to happen to you, you have to understand that the laws are consistent, but the world is always changing. So any moment you can be told one thing, but then you walk out and just the collective world, starts to change. Your family changes, someone does something different in your work, and already it's already shifted the so-called prediction. So end of the day, what really works most is, as I said, where is your locus of control? It is in how you think, in what decisions you put out, what is the education and level of alertness that you put them out, and with how long do you persist. That is going to help you. And this is not European. This is universal across all cultures. And so sometimes, like as Silma said, it can help you to serve as a way to fall back on something. But end of the day, you still have to make the final call. And that final call is entirely on you. It's not going to be on a so-called prediction, because can you really stake your entire life on someone predicting that something's going to happen for you?
Not really. Of course not. Yeah.
Exactly. So end of the day, you still have to really take the driver's seat and with the gear shift and the steering wheel, and do most of the work yourself. Yeah.
Just another question to the free will. So the very first thought that arises in the mind could be because of the prarabdha or your past vasanas. Now comes the free will where you kind of act, which could be conforming to dharma, or you act which could not be conforming to dharma, which kind of creates future karma for you, that is akami karma, right? But prarabdha will be the way it is no matter how you act,
Yes.
despite your free will.
Yes, however, prarabdha is always modified because prarabdha is what shows up right now, right? In this, but what shows up right now is still the intensity of it. It depends on how you interpret it. You can say, I am, nobody, I deserve this, I'm being punished. Or you can say, this has happened, and I acknowledge it, and now what's next? And so, this is not personal, this is just happening, and what do I do with, what's being shown to me? And so it's not this black or white, like, oh, I'm slapped. A slap for some person can be an insult. For somebody else can be a wake-up call. It really depends on how you look at what happens to you. So prarabdha karma is really just a feedback mechanism. And what better way to grow than to constantly receive feedback in the present and then ask yourself, in what manner do I use this information to make the next wise decision?
So basically, agami is pretty much in my control basis how I act on the free will.
No, agami is something that's going to happen in the future. So see, when you do something, when you respond to a result right now, something shows up in your life and you respond. Now, when you respond, that unseen result is agami karma. That unseen result will come back to you, maybe in this life, maybe in the next one, right? We don't know. But when it does, so what? Because you're still going to be available. You're still going to have your free will. You're still going to have capacity to reinterpret how, you experience the result. And so, end of the day, like I said to Gagan, where is your locus of control? It is here and now.
Got it.
Here and now. Ishvara only knows here and now. We make a complex. We say, no, there's past, there's future. And so we're constantly in the past and future obsessed. But Ishvara only knows, shows you this moment, this world, this sight, this sound, and says, my dear, what do you want to do now? I'll tell you what. If you transgress my laws, it's okay. I will show you something else in the future. You're not going to like it. If you choose to abide by my laws because it is for your own good, then I will show you something in the future and you're going to like it. What would you like to do? And you say, okay, I really have no choice. So I'm going to play by the rules of the game.
No, that's what I meant. So you can control the agami by just conforming to the law of dharma while you are acting on your free will. Not that you're trying to culminate more punyam for you. It's just that it's a way of growth for future, where you kind of use your free will in the right way by conforming to dharma.
So ultimately, who's in the driver's seat? You are. See, so
God.
Yes, hi. Agami will become prarabdha, right?
Yes, eventually. It will become sanchita technically, but sanchita, a portion of sanchita gets taken, and that portion is prarabdha, and that prarabdha is the life that you will generally experience, the kind of impressions that you will have, the kind of skills that you will have, the kind of attractions and aversions that you'll come with. So you're basically building your future in this moment, and that future that you're building is called agami. You're contributing to the future, yeah.
Any prarabdha that I had at the time that I asked that question has already been altered, and the agami has now become right. Each action that I take is kind of recycling somehow.
Yes, it is, because just the fact that you asked that there was a doubt, suppose it was a doubt, maybe it was not, and then the doubt it came out, and so you chose to do something with that prarabdha karma, and the doubt got soothed, suppose, and now that already has created a whole different trajectory. So now that trajectory, will Nicholas be asking the same question in the future? Suppose not. So already you've altered your future just by having your doubt resolved in the present. And when you resolve your doubt in the present, then you're a lot more freer in the future to focus on things that really matter, to actually express your full potential rather than constantly living in this mode of doubt, And so
this is why you hear a lot of spiritual people now talking about shifting timelines. I guess that makes sense now when I look at it through that lens.
Oh, so that's the new way of saying it.
I guess that's the new age way of saying this. Yeah, thank you.
So the question was, what is karma yoga? It is the purpose behind my actions. And that is, instead of asking, what do I want for my own sake, you ask, what is called for in this situation? And whereby you address both your needs, but also the needs of a larger whole. That's the first one. The second is changing the attitude towards your results. And we spoke now about Ishvara's will. So when we say Ishvara's will, it's not Ishvara's will. It is your will that's enacting these laws to respond in a certain way. And now, when you stop seeing that Ishvara is constantly, from top down, causing your life like your little puppet. When you stop seeing this, even though it was provisional, then what happens is you stop labeling things as good or bad. It's neither good nor it's bad. It's just a response. So now you start to see it with a certain equanimity. It's no longer, oh, it's terrible. Oh my, no, it's happened. Let's move on, because after all, it's just going to be one small moment in a history of time from 5 years from now. And so you have a certain equanimity towards life. Now, that was the first way to explain karma yoga. Now I want to, since we're on the topic, explain it through a different lens so that we are clear as to answering these two important questions. In what manner am I to do actions, and in what attitude am I supposed to receive the results? And so Now I want to give you a different language. In some texts, they say, offer your actions to Ishvara. In fact, in the Gita, 9:27, Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you say, whatever ritual you perform, do it as an offering to me. Now, this was confusing for the longest time. How do I offer? Because Karma Yoga, aspect 1, is offering my life, my actions, my whatever it is, my words, to Ishwara's, to Ishwara, offering to the altar of Ishwara. And this was like always confusing, like, where is this altar? Number one, how do I apply this while I'm cooking, while I'm brushing my teeth, while driving a car, while, washing the dishes? And number two, does Ishvara really need anything if everything is Ishvara? So now, how do I offer things to Ishvara, and why should I offer to Ishvara if Ishvara already has everything? Do you get the question? So this was kind of a confusing statement. And the way to answer this is you have to understand what is Ishvara first. Ishvara is orders, as we spoke about, orders and laws that governs this universe, and also the universe itself, all forms and all laws. And one of those laws, the most important one, the glue that holds it all together, the one that you desperately depend on, so that when you walk out, the person doesn't randomly do some hurt upon you, that's called the law of dharma. Law of dharma is the glue, the general structure by which things will run in harmony, by which the insects and the species will all cooperate in harmony. That's the law of dharma. Now, this law of dharma, when you act in the light of dharma, then you take a responsibility that you will do the best that you can without inflicting hurt, or at least minimizing the hurt upon other people. That's called dharma. So I will do my duty, I will do my part in this world, but not just do it carelessly or mindlessly. I will be careful, right, to minimize people's, injury that I could potentially inflict. So now you're aligned with dharma. Now, when you align your actions to dharma, that of itself is called offering your actions, offering all things to Ishvara. So the offering itself, the action that's righteous, that's correct, that is well informed, that is dharmic, the dharmic action itself is called offering this to the altar of Ishvara. Because what would you place to the altar of Ishvara? A dead rabbit that you, completely, hurt and tortured? Would you offer that to the altar of Ishvara? On anyone's altar? Absolutely not. You will present a certain videotape. And then Ishvara plays that videotape and says, okay, let me watch. Okay, so you have definitely worked on yourself. You have, tried to help others who, needed help. You try to express your gifts and talents, and you try to make society in a better way, your environment in a better way. I like what I see, says Ishvara. You have offered to me well. And you say, thank you. Thank you for letting me know that I have offered what was meant to be offered. So now, when you offer this to Ishvara, when your actions follow a dharma, and that dharma you recognize to be none other than Ishvara, that is what produces antahkarana shuddhi. Why? Because there are many people who are doing the right thing in this world, but they're not necessarily cleaning up their minds. They're just following carelessly, they're mindlessly, just do the right thing. But are you growing as a person? No. So now how do you grow as a person while doing the right thing? Because obviously you don't want to do the wrong thing, otherwise you'll get consequences. By understanding that the one that I am, the laws that I'm abiding to are none other than Ishvara's laws. That alone, when your mind is on Ishvara, that is what makes your mind constantly, look at the higher picture, the bigger picture of life. And that is what we call antahkarana shuddhi. The moment you take out Ishvara and you just do good, that is no longer karma yoga. It might be a little bit antahkarana shuddhi, a little bit of purifying your mind, of course, without a doubt, because every action has a reaction. But is it karma yoga? No. So what makes up karma yoga? When the actions that you do are aligned to dharma, and that dharma is understood to be none other than Lord's, Lord's structure, the Lord's intelligence, the Lord's power, and that therefore keeps your mind on the Lord, on the Lord, on the Lord. It's all about the Lord. The Lord's, I'm inside the Lord's laws. I am Ishwara's orders. I cannot escape his laws. And so it keeps your mind constantly on Ishwara, and it allows your mind to think bigger than just a small, isolated individual person who has to fight their way and compete in this world. Suppose that this is a little bit too much. Suppose, because sometimes people say, looking Ishwara as Dharma, it's a little bit too already over my head. Then what you do, and you might do this to kids, you don't tell kids that Dharma is Ishwara, it's already too much. But what you can say is, you say that you carry this relationship between master and servant, or maybe a better language, between parent and child. Like a child listens to his parents because the parents are wiser. And when a parent prescribes an instruction to the child listens, don't they? Why? Because they know that the instruction is wise. And so like this, you can take a relationship between I am a child, how to say, hey, dear child, you are his son of God, you're the daughter of God. So God's mandates are running this world for the benefit of all beings. And he's offering us a way to help ourselves by offering laws, to live by. And so by me serving him, his laws, in a different language, you call that surrendering to Ishwara. Surrendering to God just means understand that you're like a computer character. And the computer character is inside the game. And that game and the rules of that game, you did not design. Those rules are designed by a creator. And if you step outside those rules, there's a consequence system that automatically kicks in. So the only way to pass level 1 to level 2 to level 3 is by doing the prescribed duties. Grow up, teach myself, grow, feed myself, contribute, shine my talents. And so you say, so I have to pass levels. And this is what we call surrendering to Ishwara, surrendering to his laws. Let's put a summary to this. What is the instruction of Karma Yoga? Number 1, what is to be done in this moment according to what my role plays out? If my role is a parent, if my role is a manager, an employee, what is my role in this moment, and in what manner is it to be done? It is to be done in light of Samanya Dharma, the universal ethical values. Minimize hurt, but also include the well-being of other people. When the result comes, either see that as coming from Ishwara's laws, or you can say that I'm simply a child of the Lord who is there to do what needs to be done so that I can grow for myself. Either of them are okay. So this is given for us to think about. Okay, now next verse, vision of a jnani, verse 13. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan.
The indweller of the physical body, the one who is self-controlled, having renounced all actions mentally by knowledge, remains happily in the 9-gated city, the body, neither performing action nor causing others to act.
Suppose we live decently, verse 11 and 12. Verse 11 was locus of control is in your body, and therefore having that target. And verse 12 was karma yoga, the attitude by which you put actions into the world, and also the attitude by which you receive the results. I suppose that it's going well for you. What's the result of that? Verse 13 says, you start to enjoy living. In where? In the nine-gated city. Now, nine-gated city is your body. And why is it 9 gates? It's just a nice metaphor. You got 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, 2, 4, 2 ears, so 2, 4, 6, mouth, 7, and excretion, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so just 9 gated city is just a way of communicating your body. There's also symbolism for this. Suppose there's a master who is well protected behind a wall, a city wall. And the city wall is, he oversees everything. He or she sees, what's going on. However, is he or she doing anything? Not really. They're just overseeing the activities. Now, in that same manner, you can say that this city or your body is, going about its own business as usual, because there are different parts in the city that have to run. Your body's running, your heart is running on its own, the brain's doing its own thing. It's all running automatically. Now, the master, who you are, is sitting at ease, just observing all of these activities, observing your heart, observing your decisions, observing your actions, observing your emotional system, observing your questions, observing your doubts, again, just observing the whole thing. And at the same time, this master Jnani understands, while I live in this body temporarily, as though live, I'm actually everywhere, all pervasive, but for a moment, I'm living in this body, but am I actually this body? No. Whereas the unwise person, they say, I live in this body, therefore when the body moves, who's moving? I am moving. So the wise person knows that it appears that I'm moving when the body moves, but actually I'm everywhere, whereas the unwise person thinks when the body suffers, when the body moves, and whatever happens to that city, when a city gets attacked, who's getting attacked? I am getting attacked. So the life becomes a little bit hard like that. And now, the question is, suppose that, whether wise or unwise, still, things will happen to the body and the mind. How do you remain relatively undisturbed by conditions that are happening to your body and mind? And the first you can see is that your body and mind is designed to go through roles all day long. Role father, role student, role teacher, role employee, role manager, etc. Now, those roles are played out by your instrument, but are they intrinsically you? Are you intrinsically the parent? Are you intrinsically the child? Are you intrinsically, is your nature a man? Are you really a man? Are you really a woman? No. These are all roles that you're wearing provisionally. And each night, you actually let go of these roles, your so-called identity that you're so much holding on to. The role of a thinker, suppose, a role of a designer. Where is that role when you sleep? If that role was really you, if that identity that you're so attached to was really you, you could never let it go. It would be with you 24/7, because the definition of what is intrinsic is that which cannot be let go. But you do let go of all of your so-called roles that you're so dearly holding on to and take so much pride and make an identity out of. You literally let it go every single night, which shows you it cannot be intrinsic to you. You start to see that consciousness, who your nature, what you really are, is assuming these roles. You're assuming the role temporarily of a female, of a male, of a thinker, of a designer, of etc. And all of these roles that you play, first of all, have you even chosen to play those roles? Have you chosen to play the role that you generally play in your life? The entertainer, the speaker, the thinker, the designer, the architect, the artist. Have you chosen that? Do you choose who you're going to get along with or not? If you did, you would probably make a different decision. You say, I want to get along with everyone, but you magically don't get along with everyone. No matter who you are, you don't get along with everyone, okay? Do you choose who your kids will be? What kind of skills they will come with? Do you choose who your siblings will be, whether you have siblings or not? Do you choose what qualities your parents will have? Do you choose to whom and what kind of people your parents will be connected with so that you can also get a little bit of that yourself? Do you choose what challenges will come into your life and when they will come? Do you choose how long those challenges will last? Do you choose when you will die? So what do you choose here? You don't choose your roles, you don't choose your parents, you don't choose your siblings, you don't choose the qualities, you don't choose the death, you don't choose the roles, you don't choose when you wake up, you don't choose when you go to sleep, you don't choose, when you're energized. What do you choose here? I really would like to know. And yet, our whole life is about, I'm a decision maker, I'm a doer, I have chosen my whole life. And upon analysis, you see that you have no part to play whatsoever. There's only one constant variable that's throughout all of these non-chosen variables, and that is my constant awareness. And there's one thing that I can say that I have no choice, and I don't need a choice about, it's that I am, and I am, no matter what. And so, because they have a certain understanding of this, the verse calls them a vashi. This means they're self-controlled. Now, self-controlled comes at two levels. The first level is relative. Now, when you're relatively self-controlled, we call this verse 11 and 12. You have locus of your control is in your body and the mind. It's not in your, ultimately, not really in your money, how much money you're going to have, the kingdom that you're going to inherit, how your subjects are going to be towards you, what your child, whether they will listen to you or not. You ultimately don't really have much control in that. You have relative amount of influence, but not total. The second is absolute. Now, absolute is where you understand that while you're playing all these roles, you never lose sight, because it's been such a repetitive teaching for you, you never lose sight of your intrinsic nature, which is that light in whose presence all these roles are appearing and disappearing all day long. That light is the only principle that remains constant. And so you understand that ultimately, the roles, the people, all of that will go away. But if there's two things actually that never go away, and that is I am. And what's the second thing that never goes away? Ishvara. Understand? The laws never go. They're always taking care of you, always helping you, giving you feedback. Everyone that you knew has come and gone out of your life. It is one thing, Ishvara is there blessing you if you align to its laws. The moment you remove Ishvara, watch what happens. Now, because person may not have the right, understanding what Ishvara is, they may have negative connotations. This happens. You know what gets born? New Age. So in the New Age, you hear things like, oh, you choose your parents. Oh, you can influence, you can have anything you want. You are totally responsible for your life. But now, when you add Ishvara, most of those do not hold up. For instance, do you really choose your parents? No. How do you prove that? If you did, you would have made some changes, or even in your own body. Are you really getting 24/7 what you want? No. See, what they say is you can manifest anything you want in life. Have you manifested everything you want in life? Who has? So the moment you start to analyze the reality, you see that all these notions, like you're full of potential, you got infinite possibilities, manifest whatever you want, just here's the laws, think about it, imagine it, visualize it, feel it as if it's in your life. The moment you analyze that, you see that it doesn't hold up, which is why I keep on saying it's really interesting and exciting. And this is what you will pay $10,000 for. But the reality is so different. It shows you that though you can manifest things if you work hard, and even when you work hard, you realize it took you 10 years to get it. You're like, my God, I'm already old, now I'm not even into it anymore. But since the momentum has kicked in, you just sort of make yourself be okay with it. You realize that I can't manifest everything because I'm not the governor of the laws. I'm not the governor of the system. So that when you bring Ishvara, it actually makes you a lot more objective and a lot more realistic, not pessimistic or optimistic, just realistic how it really is. And with that reality, you're able to now work, in a much more, objective, mature stance. You're no longer like, oh, I didn't get it. Something's wrong with me. I'm totally responsible. Hey, if you were totally responsible, your life would have been perfect by now. Yes, there is a level of responsibility that we have in our lives day to day, but at the same time, to say that you chose your talents, how good of a decision maker you will be, how, alert you will be in the day, can you be responsible for that? That's called coffee. And even if you have coffee, even then you're not as sharp as you want to be. So there's a level of reality that we have to understand. So where is your locus of control? Krishna says this in his own words, karmani eva adhikarahate ma paleshu kadachana. Now look at how different what he says is from New Age. He says your level of locus of control is in the actions, not in the results. New Age, you can control the results, you can influence what comes to you, you can manifest the life of possibilities, you can change it all. You see the difference? Reality versus New Age. What happens when the Lord speaks? What happens when a human mind of narrow focus without a pramana speaks? And that, ironically, ends up selling millions of dollars. And this, how popular is this? Very unpopular in contrast. Can you see how reality is totally like opposite than what you would think? Things that don't work, massive. Things that work, niche. That's how it is. So he then says, therefore, having renounced all actions mentally, one remains happily. This is the next part of the verse. Why do you remain happily, having renounced all actions? Because you sit as a wise person in your 9-gated city, but you also know that whatever happens to this body and whatever results come to it, it doesn't touch you. And here, the renunciation, by the way, has two forms. The first form is renunciation by will, because he says, having renounced all actions. So the first renunciation is by will. This is when you formally take sannyasa. And the second form of renunciation, which is chapter 5, it is by knowledge, where you mentally understand that though the body-mind performs, I don't really perform any action. Therefore, the verse comes to two conclusions, and then we will analyze this deeper next week. It says, na karoti, Atma does not perform any action. You have never said hello to anyone. You've never hugged anyone. You've never hurt anyone, nor have you done anything good for anyone. Na karayati, nor does Atma cause the body or the mind to perform action. See, sometimes we think maybe Atma is like sending magical signals and causing my arm to, punch someone. No, Atma is not a controller. Even the kingdom, the king, the master who is behind the city wall observing, he still kind of sends instructions to his subjects. But Atma is not sending instructions to your body. It's just the witness in whose presence the body totally impersonally is acting out and doing according to. That I will answer next week. What makes your body do? What makes your mind do what it does? This will be answered next week. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.